Welcome to RGUTV. I'm here today with Zuzanna Salamon, who is one of the artists who has artwork at the Grace 2020 degree show. If you just want to give yourself a quick introduction.
So, hi, my name is Zuzanna. So I'm from Poland and I moved to Aberdeen to study at Robert Gordon University, Grace School of Art. So I just graduated from the painting course and I absolutely enjoy my time at university. And I would like to speak today a bit about our online degree show that just opened last Friday, and it's open until the end of this week.
So there's one thing that I noticed actually about your room is obviously on the website there's a link to your Instagram as well. Mm-hmm. What I noticed was it's actually better to look at the Instagram first and then go in the room, because it's online, you don't quite get the same feeling of the scale of the work that you would do in person. And so I think, personally, I would direct people to the Instagram first, but we will put B-roll of your photos here as well to give people more idea of the scale and stuff as well, which would be handy.
Yeah, I think Instagram is giving more of an insight of how I'm working and what actually the works are about. Obviously, because it's an online space, we were a bit limited by how many works we can present, and I just couldn't put all the works I had. And also the room has to look a bit joined together with like the subject and topic. So this is definitely one of the things that online degree show will not be able to present, is a bit like a fake reflection of the reality, because in reality you would actually see the actual size of the drawing. And I think in my practice it's also very important, the size is very important, as there are a few drawings of hands or the hands or the roots, and I actually on purpose made them in their natural size. So the drawings of the hands are actual natural size. And this is something that the viewer will not see through the screen because obviously we are not standing in front of the real artwork. So this is, I think, one of the small limits that the online degree should put on us.
So right now I'm in front of your artwork, which is I try to grow new roots in the land I call foreign.
Yes, so this year I was working on the subject of transplantation of the trees. So during last summer, I read this fantastic book by the German forester called The Secret Life of the Trees. And one chapter appealed to me in particular. It was this chapter where he described the process of transplantation of the trees and the life of the roots. And while I was reading this book, I suddenly found a lot of metaphorical reflections of my life. And so I felt like a transplanted tree because when I moved to Scotland 4 years ago, I was preparing for my transplantation like the tree. But obviously it took time for me to adapt my new root to my roots to the new soil. So this year I was researching the subject of culture and our connection to culture, and I was trying to tell my very personal story. So with time, my connection to Polish culture became very distant because Poland is now the country I'm visiting only a few times a year, and this distance is felt more and more by me. For example, when I'm speaking with my friends and they're just dropping the joke about some current situation, and because I'm not up to date with the news or what is in the Polish TV, I'm just not understanding this. I just don't understand these jokes. And I think the situation looks similar when I'm in Scotland, because I was not born here. I obviously don't have the knowledge about pop culture or culture references. So sometimes I find it very hard to understand fully what people are talking about. So this is why this whole subject of transplantation and depicting trees came from. So in this work, I am depicting the process of transplantation of the trees, so pulling out the roots from the soil and the huge hole that is left on the ground after this tree. And I felt this hole was left in Poland after I left as well. it was the hole in the heart of many people, and I think my absence was felt by the members of my family. But then with time, like everything, it healed. So even if we leave the open hole in the soil outside, the nature will start feeling this as well. So I think this is just a metaphorical reflection of my life and my journey.
It's really impressive. One of the things I really liked about your room was within minutes of being there, it genuinely made me feel something. And I think the one that really hit me the most was my roots are thousands of miles away. It transported me back to a time when I was a sailor and I spent like 8 years sailing around the world, the only Scottish person on my ship. And it made me like remember all these feelings of isolation, being homesick, and missing my friends and family and stuff. And yeah, it really spoke to me. And I guess what it really made me feel the most was empathy, because it's something that we can all relate to as well. So yeah, it's really fascinating. Yeah.
The drawing, the idea for the drawing of the bed came after one of my phone calls with my mom, and I was speaking with her, and I was like, "Mom, what did you notice after I left?" And she said, "Like your bed was all the time empty. Like your bed was empty, and for a long time, she couldn't even change it. Like she didn't want to change it. She just left this bed in hope that I will be back. Although we knew that I will be back in summer, and I'm visiting my home country quite often. I think empty bed is a symbol of someone's absence, and the drawing was quite big as well. And again, this is something that the online degree show will not reflect, because once you are standing in front of the drawing, it's a really big drawing. It's like 2 meters per 1 meter 15.
What or who inspires your work or attracted you to study this art form?
So this year I was researching really a lot of writers and artists that were working on the similar subject, because the subject of isolation or being in a foreign country, being dislocated, I think it's quite often appears in the literature as well as art. But I think who had definitely a profound impact on my art this year was Andrzej Tarkowski, the film director, and especially his film Nostalgia, and all of his black and white films. I think also because I'm from Poland, maybe the country with a similar culture where Andrzej Tarkowski was working, I found there a lot of inspiration in his works. And of course, some artists that are working with charcoal, but how I started working with charcoal is that last year I had an amazing opportunity to spend half a year in Academy of Fine Arts in Prague. And I was taking part in the live drawing classes. And on these live drawing classes, I was drawing a real size drawing. So exactly as the size of the model, the drawing was exactly the size of the model. And because I was using charcoal for that, I really enjoy this technique, and that's why I transferred to this year art practice, because I found it quite interesting how I could also use my hands directly on the surface, so really participate in the drawing process. So other artists that are inspiring me will be definitely Rinus van der Velde, so he is the Dutch artist, or Patrick Hackenberg, so his massive drawings of the trees. So probably those are my main inspirations now.
What techniques would you like to experiment with in the future?
The technique I would like to experiment more or discover, maybe work with more, is definitely printmaking. So unfortunately, because of the lockdown, I didn't have access to the printmaking studio. And actually my plan for my final works was to make prints that will be accompanying, will be shown together with my drawings. So I would definitely like to work more with printmaking and experiment more with this technique, as well as sculpture. I have some experience of working with sculpture, but it's definitely something I would like to develop in the future.
With university closing early due to COVID-19, what challenges did you face completing your work outside of your studio space? As obviously some of your pieces are quite large.
Yeah, so definitely moving out of the studios were heartbreaking, and I think it came as a shock for everyone, because studios are actually very important for artists because this is our working space, and at home environment we don't have the same possibilities. I was not as limited as some of my friends at university, also because I was working in the dry medium, so I think it was easier to work with it at home, although I still had to adapt to the environment. Um, and because charcoal is leaving so much of black powder that is almost unwashable, I really had to be careful. I had to, my drawings were not as big as I wanted them to do. Because I was limited by the space, I had to convert my living room in my studio space, which was quite challenging because we had to move a lot of furnitures, and I know that other people had even more problem as they were just trying to paint or draw in their bedrooms. A lot of these people stay in the student accommodations or just in the family places. So it was challenging in many ways, not only from the practical point of view, but I think it was very stressful time for everyone. The situation was so different, and we still had to keep producing works, and this was definitely challenging because most of us, and I was not feeling just mentally healthy fine. And sometimes I almost had to force myself to keep creating because I knew that just the deadlines and assessment is coming. I think that also another thing is that we lost the possibility to exhibit our work in the physical degree show. And the degree show is something extremely important because this is something we think about and dream about since we started university for 4 years. We see other students exhibiting their work, and we dream about the day when we will have this grand opening, and suddenly we realize that this is not the case this time. And not only it was hard to keep motivating, but these other things, they were only adding to this situation. I think it took it took a bit of time to adapt to the situation, and I think most of us did, and it's fine. But I keep thinking what their works would look like if we had actual spaces and we could create what we were planning.
I did have a really good afternoon yesterday in the virtual degree show. I would fully recommend it. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, though, it is a shame that we were not able to have an actual physical space.
For some students, this online degree show was a great opportunity to create something or to create spaces otherwise they would not be able to create. And I think it is especially visible when visiting the contemporary art practice spaces or design, like just design, the spaces of designers, because they really created amazing spaces, and they wouldn't be able to do that in the physical degree show. But I really think it depends in what kind of field of art you're working on, because for painting students, I think it was quite limiting, because nothing, like there's no virtual experience that will show you the true colors, the true texture, and the true impression you can get when attending a physical show.
Who would be your dream artist to collaborate with? Could be anybody large or small.
Oh wow, that's a really great question. I've never thought about this, but I think I would like to try performance. So if I had a chance to collaborate with someone that is doing performance, and maybe implement the objects of drawing that I can make, that would be great. And I met actually last year in Prague the artist Rico Vanda. So he's quite a performer artist. And so he is a tutor in the Academy of Fine Arts in Prague. And I would actually love to collaborate with him because his performances are just simply amazing, and they really dig down into some social problems. So that would be something that I would like to do in the future.
I think it's definitely something this worth looking into. I used to be a manager of a performing arts center, and a lot of my favorite shows were always when you had like different art forms all kind of coming together to create shows. You would have like filmmakers show things on projectors, singers singing, and there'd be like drama and things as well. And yeah, sometimes when artists collaborate together, they make the most amazingly entertaining things.
That's true.
What advice would you give to people that are about to start studying at Grace?
What advice I would give? Just try as many techniques and things as possible at the very beginning, because in later years, especially in the fourth year, you will focus more on just creating your final works, and there's maybe not so much time to experiment anymore. And I regret that I didn't try earlier some of the things that I know now. So printmaking, going to different workshops, all tutors and all people in the workshops are technicians, are very, very nice. And they will be very happy to help. So don't be shy and just go around and ask them to help you or to show you how to do something, and they will be happy to do so. So I would advise someone who is coming to Grace, try to experiment and enjoy these first years as much as possible.
So now that you're at the stage where you're at the degree show and having graduated and stuff, what are your plans now for the future?
So I've been recently awarded the Royal Scottish Academy John Kinross Scholarship, which is giving me the possibility to go for 3 months to Florence and to work on a new body of work. And I'm actually leaving tomorrow. So I will be in Florence at the end of this month. And I'm really looking forward to start this new chapter. I think the whole situation was very tough, and a lot of us need some break now just to focus on creating something new. And I always find myself more more creative when I'm stimulated by a new environment. So I'm definitely going to Italy now to start my scholarship. And then I hope to continue my studies on the master level, but I would definitely like to try to do some residence in the future as well. So it's quite a broad spectrum of ideas.
Florence is absolutely amazing. I've been there a long time ago, and honestly, the architecture is beautiful. I think you will get a lot of inspiration there, I think.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm in Italy like every year for a few months. So I've been in Florence a few times, and I absolutely love the city. And actually, I'm really looking forward to be there now, when there's not so many tourists, because I found admiring Florence a bit hard because of the crowds everywhere. It's not even possible to just pass the street without just being pushed from some sides. So I'm really looking forward to being in Florence now.
When you said that you want to continue your studies for an MA, did you mean here at RG or did you mean elsewhere?
Although I believe that the master course at RG are great, the courses that they have are not necessarily what I would like to do. It will be definitely connected with art, but I feel that I need to change environment now to be more creative. And I think my time in Aberdeen, I use my time in Aberdeen as effectively as I could, and I just feel it's time for me to move on and to change things a bit. But RGU definitely gave me this possibility that I gained so much experience from RGU, and I really enjoy my 4 years of studies. Also as a foreign student, I know that it's really welcoming university for people from outside, from abroad. And not for a single moment I was regretting my decision to just move to Aberdeen to study at RGU. I found this university very stimulating, it was very interesting environment to be at. Definitely Grace is a very unique school. And what makes it unique is also it's that the school is quite small, so students are getting really a lot of support and help. Compared to other art schools, the painting courses have up to 100 students, and at the Grace there was only 19 of us. So that's a massive difference. And thanks to that, I believe that every single person really got a lot of support and attention, and tutors were always up to date with our artistic project. And I would definitely recommend going and studying at RGU and the Great School of Art. It's just my time to move on.
I guess what I'm curious now is having spoke to you and having looked at your art and stuff was, and you're heading straight off to to Italy. So I guess I'm curious, when will you get a chance next to visit friends and family and stuff?
I'm actually going just for a week to Poland and then from Poland to Italy. So I'm leaving tomorrow, but I will be for a week in Poland just to see my family, and then I'm heading to Italy. So I just didn't mention that, but I'm definitely looking forward to see my family because I think the situation was really tough for everyone, and I definitely need some contact with my relatives because I felt a bit isolated because of the situation, like everyone. So yeah, I think my family is also used to the fact that I'm not often at home, that I'm just coming and saying bye, but I will see my family for some time.
I'm really pleased to hear that, as it obviously must have been a very stressful past few months and stuff. And if you were just go straight back into more work again, it would be, I guess it would still be kind of stressful missing your family and friends and stuff. So that's great to hear. So I guess what we need to do next is do a plug for the degree show.
I would like to invite all to see Grace Degree Show, as there was a lot of work put from both sides, students and tutors, to make this show happen. And I think it's an absolutely unique experience. It's really interesting to browse through different spaces. So please come, support us, and I'm sure you will find something interesting. And just please join us.
Perfect, thanks. So I guess the only things I think that are left to say is congratulations on all your achievements and your hard work that you've done here. Your room is absolutely fantastic. You're obviously
Thank you very much for that.
very talented, and you're obviously going to go far. I hope you enjoy your time with your family and friends and your 3 months in Italy, which I am very jealous of, by the way. Thanks for joining us. It's really appreciated.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope you have a nice day. Thank you so much for your support and for promoting our degree show.